Hello, nice to see you again.
It is a great pleasure for me having you here today. I really look forward to hearing all your questions, and I hope we have a very thoughtful and extensive conversation today.
Hearing Byzantine, we immediately associate it with rich history, Orthodox Christianity, opulence of East and West. What were you thinking about when you were inventing the name?
I actually had 5 reasons. The first one definitely being rich history and civilization, which is both a historic fact and a myth. The second one was the connection to Russia. As a Russian brand, I started searching for some particular name or a concept once again, which would be associated to it, but not in a straight way. And for us as a country between East and West, it has always been a question of choosing the sides to which to orient. I guess if we meet 3 people on the street, 3 Russian people in the street, and ask them a question whether they think Russia is a Western or an Eastern country, you would have 3 different answers. The first one being Eastern, the second Western, and the third one being Eastern and Western. And I guess the only other concept in the world and the only other civilization that ever existed in the world is Byzantine, the land which definitely holistically found a balance between the East and the West. This thing in particular is very similar to what we have in modern Russia. So I guess it is a bit of an ancient version of our country, of our culture nowadays. I also chose the name Byzantine because when we think of it, we think of, as you said, opulence, gold, rich textures, velvet, textiles, and basically everything which is connected to the concept of luxury. And then the last point was that Byzantine actually has letters very similar to my name. It sounds a bit similar to my name, which is Elizaveta. And I think definitely when you're creating something by yourself, you want to have a piece of it in your heart. And for me, there are these letters in the name which represent myself a bit as well.
Is there anything behind this vivid image of Byzantine?
There definitely is, and it has been our point when developing the brand to actually give a little bit more insight into this background information that usually is hidden behind the brand walls. For us, we like presenting mood boards and different pictures of what inspired the brand and a particular collection. And if we speak about the so-called mood boards or references or things behind the brand, for me it would be this crazy mix of art of the beginning of the 20th century and the ballet russe of Sergei Diaghilev and the famous artist Leon Bakst, who worked with the great Diaghilev. It is also the spices of the Eastern patterns and textiles and tiles and architecture. I hope the chic and the couture feeling of the runways of the 1980s and the 1990s, which are my personal favorites.
What is style? Is it a talent, hard work? Is it somebody's or something's influence?
To me, style is adopting fashion to your own pattern, I would say. And it is definitely a much more complex question and point than fashion. Because for adopting something to your own pattern, you have to actually know what your pattern is. It is also a difficult skill because you have to be 100% honest with yourself and also not afraid of showing your honest self to others. So it is definitely hard work. It is also every day and constant work and constant dialogue with yourself.
Well, who inspires you? Who are your soulmates?
The thing that makes me really happy and makes me enjoy working on my project even more is the fact that I can find creativity and inspiration for doing the things that I do in my daily life, and sometimes waking up in the morning I don't even know what the day holds for me and what things will influence me and make me create something special. I really love visiting museums for inspiration, and as I've said, my personal favorite period in art is the beginning of the 20th century, and I'm not sure if I know the right name of this group of artists, but I guess it would be the world of art, which Leon Bakst was part of. I'm also very much influenced by the designers of this period, being Paul Poiret and Elsa Schiaparelli, Jean Lanvin, and all these couturiers who to me are the epitome of fashion as art.
We can see it in your initial collection. What is it devoted to?
I try to envisage everything that I hold behind the brand in the first collection, and I hope that you can see that the references of their collection are very much similar to the whole concept of the brand itself. Once again, it is the couture of the end of the 20th century. It is art of the first half of the 20th century, and it is also art of one of contemporary Russian artists. His name is Andrei Remnev. He combines traditional Russian ethnic tales and clothing in very contemporary-looking paintings, which influenced my ideas as well. And also the textiles that I find when I travel. The textiles that were used in this collection had been sourced all over the world, starting from obviously Russia and its regions, starting from Moscow and then going to Dagestan, for example. Then I've also found textiles that inspired me in Uzbekistan, in China, in Turkey, and some of them in Italy, which I guess also represents and speaks for the concept of the brand even more than the words that I say. My goal was digging these jewelry boxes, as I said, from different regions and combining them all together to make this collage of mine.
Is there any saying or quotation that can describe Byzantine best of all, or is relevant to Byzantine?
To me, this whole idea of Byzantine is definitely not just an idea of fashion. It is a mix of culture, faith, or religion, art, traditions, and everything else. For me, this kind of foundation is a very holistic one, and I also think that it is a very true concept of a brand. And if I would have to think of a quote, I would think of a poem of a Russian poet and writer, Nikolai Gumilev, and the name of the poem is, if I'm not mistaken, it is Fra Beato Angelico, and I can't recall the whole poem, but I remember a part of it, being eternity of God and worlds beyond our ken, while life of humankind is fulminant and odd, but inexhaustive are those blissful men who share the love of world and trust in God.